Graeme Forsyth back here on Amateur Sports TV for another edition of Coffee with Graeme here on the network. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the show. I hope you guys are ready to learn a bit about some baseball here. Well, a bit about a league. We covered it earlier this year. I think it was near the end of July, but we covered the MJBL League, which is the Manitoba Junior Baseball League, and we had President Jamie Bettens joining us on the show at that time, and he's going to join us again here. And awesome talking to Jamie, as always. And Jamie, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good, and there's been some issues with us connecting. You've been busy. I've been a busy man. We've all been busy. It's about that time. But how have you been doing with handling everything with the league so far since the last time I talked to you, and just handling other things like awards and stuff?
Everything's been great. The league is wrapped up, I guess, our play for the season. The Elmwood Giants are now the three-time champions of the Manitoba Junior Baseball League. They've won the last 3 years in a row, and I believe 5 out of the last 7 even. So they're on a bit of a run right now, and it's up to the rest of the teams to kind of do their job and catch up during the offseason. Had a lot of great things, a lot of great stories throughout the season, and really, given the whole COVID thing, not to beat a dead horse here, just a ton of hard work was put into the season, not necessarily from myself, but from the executives on all the teams, all the coaches and the players to really even get through and have a full season is a bit of a statement as to how hard we worked.
And definitely a huge statement made, as there were some leagues that actually pulled out due to COVID-19, but it looked like your league looked like it was running strong and you were able to finish the season, which was awesome. And last time you were on the show, we talked about the executive group in particular, and you said that they've been so strong, and you actually said if you had a choice to give the MVP to someone, it would be that group of executives. But just talking about the stability provided by them handling the challenge, how much can you say about this executive group now that the season has come to a close?
Extremely proud of all of our teams. And when I say that, I refer almost directly with the executive groups of each group, each team rather, the opportunity that they provided for the hometown fans to be able to come and see these games, to be able to go to see them safely in a safe manner with the social distance, with the all of the disinfecting and the sanitizing and everything else that needed to be done. But really just send a statement to, small town Altona, Pembina Valley, to Steinbach, to Ile-des-Chênes, to all those kind of areas to really say, on a Friday night, you don't have to stay in your house. You can come out to a local game, see some outstanding young local talent, and really have something to strive for. And we've got a lot of feedback from a lot of these teams that, the attendance was at an all-time high. And hopefully that's sustainable throughout the future, which only bodes well for those franchises as far as raising money and keeping costs down for the players.
And we talked about it last time you were on the show earlier, July. I'm pretty sure it was July the last time we connected, but you talked about how we talked about actually how we thought the parity of the league this year was at an all-time high, and there are definitely some teams that stay consistent, and there are some upsets in the playoffs, and we're going to get into all that in just a bit here in the show. But just talking about the parity and just the talent pool that you guys had this year, can you speak about how great that talent was this year that you guys were able to display on the field?
Yeah, it was outstanding. Given the situation that we were in, a lot of players weren't able to move on to playing in academies or playing in other kind of collegiate level leagues across the country. So those players stayed back here, and what that did was basically brought Division I, NCAA Division I caliber talent back into the league. And some of these players were playing at other colleges as well, Division II and the NAIA Division I level, junior college Division I level. And when you can kind of inject those players back into each system, it creates a little bit more not just parity within the league, but it just makes every team, every organization just that much more stronger. So on any given night, it didn't matter which team it was. If they were starting one of their top guys on the mound that typically doesn't stick around in this league, everybody had a chance. And that's why we saw some upsets in the playoffs and a few things like that. So it was great. I can only hope as the president of the league that these players realize that the caliber of baseball that they were subject to was still more than enough to prepare them for college, and would consider staying in the league the following season and beyond.
And it's definitely a great place to take your talents as the MJBL. And just talking about your career, as we talked about last year, how you played for the St. Boniface Legionnaires, and then you ended up moving up to the collegiate level and then finishing your career with the Winnipeg Gold Eyes. There's definitely those opportunities provided in these leagues. And other than the male players in the league, we talked about how there's been some female players coming up, and I'm not too sure if you guys had female players again this year, but just the opportunity to keep adding to that and adding female players to the game, I'm pretty sure you're thinking it's a pretty great opportunity for you guys to do that.
It's a win-win situation for everybody. I just think equality in sport is something that is obviously not on the front burner right now. There's a lot of other things in the world that we're dealing with, and I have all the respect in the world for everything else that's going on. But controlling what I can control and equality in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League is something that's near and dear to my heart. I have a young daughter who loves softball and likes playing baseball and playing catch with the smaller ball, and potentially aspires to be in the Manitoba Junior League someday. And I hope that I can be a part of the groundswell movement that, creates a pipeline for young girls to feel that they have the opportunity on an equal level to the boys playing in this league. And I'm okay with that. There's a few discrepancies in the physicality of the sport and the age discrepancy, but I think we've put in some good initiatives in place to make it a situation where everybody has the opportunity to succeed. And that's essentially what we're looking for, not just to open the doors up to anybody, but open it up to those who, have the opportunity to succeed, because we don't want to discourage anybody within their attempt as well.
And obviously you've had some players, female players, join your league, but what is the goal to making that a sustainable thing, to getting female players to join the league? What steps are you guys looking to take to make that the new normal?
I'm not sure if there's any steps to make it sustainable or putting some sort of quota on saying each team needs to have a certain amount of females. At this time, it's in its infancy, but what we're trying to do is and what we've done actually is create an opportunity for young female players to continue training at a high performance level, so that they're preparing themselves best for what they need as far as the highest level of competition. So I guess what I'm saying by that is, the two players that we have are on the provincial team. They have aspirations to play on the Canadian national women's baseball team, and their best opportunity to prepare and train for that opportunity is by playing in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League and facing the caliber of player that we have in it. So to look for a long-term sustainability model, I don't know if there's one at this time, but we will continue to be open to the opportunity of letting those players in that need that opportunity to train.
And now that the season's over, Jamie, I know that you're still a very busy man. You've had meetings. You talked to me last week, and you're talking about how you're preparing season awards. I'm just wondering, going into the next season, this off season is going to be a pretty busy one, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. It always is for our members. We'll have a bit of a debrief meeting between the executive. The awards will be done this week. We'll go public with those award winners, and won't be able to present in the typical fashion that we have done in the past, where we would go to their home park during a playoff series or something. But we will be announcing them on our Twitter feed and in the media as well, and on amateur sports TV, of course. So we're going to wrap that up as well. And then we have a few notes of business that need to be taken care of going into the season. Baseball Canada has given the national championships the opportunity to increase the age level by 1 year for next season, to kind of give the players that were graduating from the Manitoba Junior Baseball League the opportunity to come back for one more year due to COVID and still participate in the national championship. So our league still has to vote to approve to change that same thing for our league to mimic the national championship. So that's probably the number one thing we need to kind of get out of the way or get decided on, and the awards right after that.
And that's awesome stuff, Jamie. It's awesome to hear that you guys are still, you still got your mindsets on improving the league and just talking about stuff that you can go into next season to maybe do better. So, Jamie, stick with us here. We're going to take our first commercial break in this edition of Coffee with Graeme. We're going to hear from our lovely sponsors here on the show, but I'll be right back with Jamie Bettens, president of the Major Junior Baseball League. And back here on the network with Jamie Bettens on this edition of Coffee with Graeme, the MJBL president, and we were talking about how the season went with the executives handling it, the talent pool that the MJBL presented this year, and just talking about the parity in the league and how it was at an all-time high. And we're going to dive into that a bit more here as we're going to look at the teams who kind of made some noise this year, teams who struggled, and then, like I like to say, the cream of the crop of the league. So just starting off with the teams that kind of struggled this year, but there are definitely some positives with this Winnipeg South team, as even though their record didn't indicate that they were the strongest team, they were still able to gain that playoff berth. And there's some games I saw on the schedule where they were in some very tight games and they made it very difficult for teams. So just we talked about last time how it's so tough to start up a program, and for Winnipeg South maybe not getting that great success this season, but just getting some experience under their belt with making the playoffs for the first time. So just talking about how this team was able to come together in the end to make it to the playoffs, Jamie.
The Winnipeg South is a success story in the eyes of the Manitoba Junior Baseball League. To bring a franchise back, a lot of people may not realize it's not an easy thing to do, because any players that were from per se the Winnipeg South area and already on an existing Manitoba Junior Baseball League roster are still property of that team. So if there was somebody playing in St. James or somebody playing at Elmwood, those Winnipeg South players had the right to stay in those programs, and some of them did. They established some friendships along the way and had a level of comfort in that organization. So out of the gate, Winnipeg South had a challenge to field the lineup. They certainly got enough players to do so. From a performance on field, they were very respectable. Never had any incidents, with regards to the talent pool. They were always had a full lineup. They lost, I think, 6 games by 1 or 2 runs, which tells me that, those go the other way, and we're not talking about them being in the bottom of the standings. And they upset Altona in the first round of the playoffs with one of the games and took that series, a little bit further than anybody expected. So, for the group there and the job that Coach Traeger did at Winnipeg South, my hat's off to those guys, and we look forward to them being a strong force in the league for years to come.
And just talking about how those games could have gone either way at points, just talking about the experience that this group got this year, and you said the talent pool was very respectable. Do you think that this is a team that could be making some noise next season and maybe being near the top of the standings?
I think anything is possible in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League. I think the one thing that they have going for them is Winnipeg South has an outstanding organization from top to bottom, and they've always had strong programs from 13U, 15U, and 18U. And their 18U program is synonymous with playoff runs and going to Western and national championships. So I think if they can, tap into that pipeline and keep those players around, Winnipeg South, and with no hesitation in my mind, can be one of those top teams challenging year after year.
And then going into teams who improved, and one team in particular was the Pembina Valley Orioles. And from 2019 to this year, which is 2020, they improved from a record of 10-14 to 14-7, finishing 3rd this season. And just a team that's scary to play at home, as they had the best home record, the best runs for average in the league, and just talking about how they weren't too bad with runs given up as well. Just talking about the talent pool that Pembina Valley had and how they were able to put it all together this season.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties about our league is that I believe we capture the hotbeds of baseball talent, with the exception of maybe tapping into the Brandon area, not having a franchise there, and kind of up in that the Yellowhead, maybe Neepawa region as well. We'd love to have a little bit more reach out to there, but the Altona Pembina Valley region is a hotbed synonymous for producing elite level talent. Some of it goes to college and some of it doesn't, just because of the working mindset that they have out there. And that's great. But there is never an easy game in Pembina Valley or Altona. Pembina Valley did a great job this year in recruiting. They got players from Killarney, from Cartwright, from all over, and really became a blend of the community. And I think that will bode well for them in the future. Very, very tough to play there as a coach and as a player. I can attest to that. I had numerous battles with some outstanding teams and players out there, and Pembina Valley will again, they are the kind of organization that really never wants to kind of satisfy themselves with just the norm. They will always strive to be one of the top teams without question, and we love that about them.
And then the regular season that they had was phenomenal. Just looking on paper, I didn't get a chance to watch any games this year, but just talking about the hotbeds in baseball in Manitoba, definitely Pembina Valley is looking like one of those teams coming up. And even though they did lose in the playoffs, getting upset in the playoffs, I forget which team upset them, but they were one of the two upsets in that first round. There's definitely a lot to look at from the season and take away and say that we've accomplished so much and we're only going to build on it. So just talking about the cream of the crop now, the Elmwood Giants and the Altona, I forget the name now, the Altona Bisons. Yeah. The best teams in the league this year. And just talking about Elmwood, the strengths of this team, definitely on the defensive side of things with 74 runs against, which was the least in the league, and talking about their consistency. And we talked about Elmwood earlier this year and talking about how they got such a good organization off the field. Was that in full effect this year for how they were so successful?
Without question, and it was never more evident than Game 3 of the finals when I was there to present the championship trophy. The amount of Elmwood T-shirts and memorabilia that's going around, it rivaled only really the Winnipeg Goldeyes in the city as far as support from the community. There were people inside the park that paid. There were people outside the park that were looking through the fences, young kids from the area looking. It's really as good as you could possibly get it as far as a junior league franchise. They are one of the, if not the model franchise in our league as far as the way they run their day-to-day operations. Coach Ed Kulik runs a great program. He does a great job of recruiting and creates an atmosphere that the players thrive in. If there was one team that would keep players from going to other opportunities, I would probably have Elmwood at the top of that list. And the fact that they're three-peat champions and 5 out of 7 years attest to that. The proof is right there.
And three-peat is amazing in any sport. Was this the first time that a team has three-peated in the MJBL?
No, it's happened quite a few times. Elmwood's done it before. I think Legion 141, St. Boniface, a few others have done it. And then the Carmen Goldeyes, who are no longer in the league, they had a four-peat. And they might have even done it a couple of times. So it's happened before. I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of the rallying cry for Elmwood going into next season, is to take a shot at a four-peat, which could be one of those things that one day when the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame comes calling, a four-peat's something that's pretty hard to ignore.
Yeah, for sure. And we don't have enough time to get into it, but just Elmwood, the model franchise in the MJBL right now. And just moving on to Altona before we get into the playoffs here, Jamie, just a championship in 2015, but then a total 180 after that, as they were kind of struggling for a bit, and they were last place at points in 2018. They were last place, but then they really turned it around with 2 consecutive second place finishes and improving the record each year. So just talking about Altona's climb back to the top of that mountain, trying to, of course, they didn't get it this year against Elmwood, but making it to the finals this year, there's a lot to build on there for sure, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think Elmwood, I wouldn't certainly say, I wouldn't want to take anything away from their victory, but I think the series could have been a little bit tighter if Altona hadn't lost a couple of players that had to eventually make their college commitment and go back down south. They were pretty short rostered, I guess, towards the end of the series there, and it ended up costing them. And that's typically what has happened to Altona over the past couple of years. It's not on the recruiting angle. It was just the sheer number of players that they had to draw from in their pool. They just went through a little bit of a blip, but as you can see, they recovered. They came back strong. They have a beautiful field now, access field, that now has lights in Altona. So that is kind of the focal point of the town in the summertime. They have some of the best crowds and the most, I guess, high baseball IQ in the Altona crowd. They love their ball, and they're very good and very loyal to the Bison's product. So the Altona Bisons, without question, are going to be one of those franchises, as maybe one of the top rural franchises as well, that year in, year out, puts a good product on the field, takes care of their field. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go after hosting a couple of championships in the next little while. They have the ability to do so.
And just before we move into the playoffs, just the series that transpired, just talking about Altona losing some pretty key players, but they were able to rebound pretty well. So do you think that losing those players, and you said that's kind of been their Achilles heel these past years where they've lost players due to college commitments and stuff like that, do you think that speaks to how high their talent level is to know that they have that depth to come through and make long playoff runs?
Absolutely. I think any successful championship program has to have a pipeline. Altona has realized that is the key to sustainable success. And so they pay a lot more attention and put a lot more back into the minor ball system. Some of the players reaching back into the community and working with the programs, and then just calling up their 18U players. When you have a player who's 16 or 17 years old on a junior league bench, it can be nerve-wracking, could be challenging, but at the same time, the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And when you become an 18-year-old in the league and you've already had 2 years of a little bit of, I guess, getting used to things, it certainly makes for a confident player when they're in their rookie year at 18.
And moving into the playoffs now, Jamie, and there was a lot of parity in that first round, both Pembina and St. James going out, and one of those teams that pulled off one of the upsets was Interlake. And we talked about Interlake earlier in the season, how they were one of the teams that you were looking for down the stretch, and you called it, Jamie. You called it that, they never start off strong, but as the season rolls on, they usually come together and find their game, and they found their game in that first round, and they even made some noise in the semifinal round too. So just talking about a team like Interlake doing what they were able to do this playoffs.
Yeah, Coach Stoller, Coach Kirk, you get a lot of experience with those coaching staffs. Those guys have played in numerous playoffs, championships, and at the college level. So starting slow for a team like Interlake, is not surprising to see them, make their kind of turnaround at some point during the season and then really put their foot on the gas. The upset, like you had said, didn't really surprise me as they were ready to play. And if you're not ready to play against the Interlake Blue Jays, that's a team that can sneak up and bite you fast and then put you away just as quickly. So hats off to them. They're going to be hosting the Western Canadian Championships next year. And I think that might have been a little bit of a rallying cry as well, because that team really wants to stay together. We're obviously hoping that they have the ability to do so with the age change, and be very interesting to see what they put together and maybe make a few call-ups and take a run at a Western Canadian Championship as well as the league championship next season.
Man, that would be amazing to see a team like Interlake taking a shot at a championship like that. I definitely love to see it. I know you'd love to see it as well, but we are running out of time here. We're going to ask you one more question here, Jamie, just about the championship series. You talked about how Altona could have made it closer if they had some of their players back, but just talking about how these teams matched up going in and how the Giants were able to get that sweep.
Both teams very evenly matched. Even the third and final deciding game, although the series was a sweep by Elmwood, every game was really close for the most part, with the exception of an inning here or there that got away from teams. It was a bit of a dream final as far as our league's concerned. I personally love when it's a city team versus a rural team. There's always a little bit extra added to the rivalry at that point. Altona and Elmwood seem to always, have good games against each other as kind of some of those top franchises in that top group of our league. And the coaches, the coaches come with a high IQ. So, there's a lot of, the chess match, I guess, comes out as well. So when we get a final like that, we have the media there, amateur sports TV covering it, as well as some of the other outlets. It really sends, a little bit of a profile to our league. And when we can have two great teams in the middle of a late August summer, like I said, it's a baseball fan's dream.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, us at Amateur Sports TV, we're always happy to cover you guys because, man, there's a lot of talent coming out of this league. As you've said, there's been a lot of players that have moved on to collegiate careers. And it's just, like you said, Manitoba is a hotbed for baseball talent right now. So, Jamie, I know you're a busy man, so I'm going to let you go right now. But thank you so much for joining us today. And if anything else comes up with the MJBL, we're always happy to have you on again, Mr. President.
My pleasure, and thank you very much for all of your coverage during the year. It's been great, and I look forward to seeing Amateur Sports TV having a larger role with the Manitoba Junior Baseball League, and I look forward to seeing all of our friends, family, and fans watching MJBL games next season.
Of course, we'll be watching, and Jamie, until next time, I'll talk to you.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care, Jamie. And that was Jamie Bettens, the MJBL president, and kind of a little nickname there for Mr. President, as I like to say. But that's going to do it for today's edition of Coffee with Graeme here on Amateur Sports TV. I've been your host, Graeme Forsyth. Thanks to all our supporting sponsors for supporting today's edition of the show. Like I say all the time, without you guys, these shows wouldn't happen. So we thank you guys so much for your support on the shows. And I'm pointing at you, to our supporters. Thank you for supporting us throughout this year and throughout this time with the COVID-19 pandemic. Things are looking tough right now, but we're going to get through it. And as long as we stick to the guidelines and the advice by public health officials, by health officials all over the world, I think we're going to get through it. So that's me being optimistic, but yeah, you got to be optimistic nowadays. But thanks to all our viewers for tuning into today's show. We thank you guys for supporting today's show, and we hope that if you are a new viewer, you guys decide to keep supporting us on the network, this show, especially Coffee with Graeme. We got other shows too. We got many great hosts on this network hosting shows, and we got some new shows coming as well, so stay tuned for that. Might be starting up the high school show again, who knows, seeing how that goes. But until next time, I'm your host of Coffee with Graeme Forsyth, signing off. And until next time, just remember, grab your cup of joe, sit back, and enjoy all our shows here. Have